The film begins with an army officer named James, who attends with his wife a ceremony honoring 3 of his colleagues. We know here that James is a special operations officer who has great experience and skill in his work. In addition to being very organized, he reviews the information of each task well before it is carried out and practices sports constantly to maintain his physical fitness, especially since he and his colleagues undergo periodic medical examinations. It appears that James suffered a knee injury while working and is using certain medical drugs to recover quickly. In the midst of this, James cares about his family consisting of his wife Brian and son Jack, spends the entire period of his vacation with them, and likes to spend a long time with Jack because he is away from home for long periods because of his work. One day, a call comes to James telling the new leader that he wants to meet him. The next day, James goes to the unit and is surprised that the commander tells him to terminate his service in the army because medical examinations have proven a problem with his respiratory system. James responds that he participated in more than one operation without any difficulty breathing, but the leader ignores his words and tells him that his blood test showed the presence of banned chemicals. James explains that he used some medicines to treat his knee quickly because he did not want to move away from the unit and wants to continue serving the homeland, but the leader informs him that he violates the military laws and that he will not record this information in his file so that he does not go to trial, and he is content with terminating his service and depriving him of pension. Despite James's shock and disbelief in what is happening, he performs the military salute and comes out of the office, unable to understand that he has become out of work. One of his colleagues meets him and tells him that the new commander has finished the service of a large number of their colleagues because he is making a comprehensive change in the members of the unit. After that, James returns home sad, and when his wife Brian learns about it, she advises him to file a complaint against the leader, but he refuses because he used illegal substances to treat his knee. Brian is upset that they won't be able to pay the debt, but James reassures her that he will find work soon. After a while, Brian tells him that one of his colleagues died after alcoholism for a long time until he hurt himself, and we know that a number of James's colleagues hurt themselves and died after they finished their service in the army. Brian looks worried and scared for James not to do like them, but he reassures her that he will never do it. The next day, he attends his colleague's funeral, and there he meets Mike, one of his colleagues who were fired from the service like him. Mike invites him to dinner at his house, and when James goes, he is surprised by the luxury of the house. After dinner, Mike is surprised by his poor financial condition and offers to work with him, explaining that he works for a private security company that carries out operations for the government informally. James agrees, and days later he goes with Mike to meet the owner of the company, Rusty, who was a former general in the army. Rusty sits with James, and it turns out that he studied his file well. He explains to him that the company deals with national security issues confidentially, and that the law allows the government to deal with private security companies. He tells him that there is a mission in Germany, and he chose him for it under Mike's leadership, and gives him a $50,000 check to pay off his debts. James was happy and returned home, handed the check to Brian and lied to her, saying he worked in a private company. But Brian was worried that James's salary was too high, which meant he would be at great risk or that he was working in an illegal matter. James reassured her and told her that his salary was high because he would work abroad. The next day, James went to the company's headquarters and handed over all his personal belongings because he was going to travel to Germany with a new identity. When he arrived in Germany, he went to the hotel where he would stay, and there one of the team members named Katya met him and told him that the target to be monitored is a virologist named Salim. James asked her how dangerous he was, and she told him that he was trying to develop a new virus to be delivered to criminal organizations. After that, James began to observe Salim and discovered that he was married and had children, and was keen to photograph him in different situations to the extent that he was able to find out the code of the door of his house. Days later, James received a letter from Mike asking him to go to a certain address and wait there. James went to the place and waited, and the next day, Mike and the rest of the team arrived, and they had brought with them all the equipment and weapons they would use. Mike began by telling them that Salim moved to Berlin to complete his research with funding from someone associated with some criminal institutions, and that he was trying to make a virus in his laboratory to use as a biological weapon. Mike reviewed the details of the mission with them and told them that the laboratory was close to the forest, which gave them a good chance of breaking into it. After that, they got ready and moved towards the laboratory, And when they got there, they took control of the guard and used his handprint to enter from the gate and started looking for Salim until they found him and tied him up. Mike began questioning Salim, asking him where his research was stored and if there were backups of it. Salim replied, terrified that everything was on the computer. One of the team's specialists confirmed his words and found that all the research was kept on the device. Meanwhile, a message arrived from Katya, who was waiting for them in the car outside the laboratory, telling them that the police knew that the laboratory had stormed and that they were on their way. Mike ordered the rest of the team to kill Salim and burn the laboratory, and assured them that it would be done as if it were a natural accident. Then they took the computer containing the research, and James went to Salim to numb him before they burned the place. But Salim kept begging him not to kill him and told him that he did not understand what he was doing, because his research would save the lives of many. James felt hesitant and felt that Salim was not lying. Salim told him that he had a copy of his data kept in a deposit box so that he could make sure himself. But James ignored his words and numbness. He waited until Salim lost consciousness, then freed him from his restraints, and then he and his colleagues burned the place and fled quickly. But as soon as they left, the police had arrived and there was a shootout, and a team member was killed. Mike went to take the computer from him, but he was injured in his leg. Katya was also injured, and the police were able to control her, but one of the team members killed her before they took her with them. James threw a smoke bomb at the police, carried Mike on his shoulder, and they ran together into the forest, the police chasing them. James continued to run carrying Mike until they reached the river, went down into the water, dived into a sewage, and walked into the underground sewer. James began to treat Mike's wound and transfer blood to preserve his life. Mike asked James that if he died, let him be the first to tell his wife. But James reassured him that he would not die and would return to his wife and son. Several hours later, Mike woke up after his condition improved, but he was surprised that James was unable to walk because of an old pain in his knee that worsened his carrying Mike for a long distance. James asked Mike to go hand over the computer and complete the task, but Mike said he needed to rest for at least 24 hours, and told him that after handing in the computer, he would wait for him at the hotel according to plan. The next day, James's condition improved. He came out of the water and remained in disguise so that no one would discover him. Suddenly, he heard gunfire around him and saw a car in front of him, so he understood that someone was hunting him inside the forest. He checked the car and found water, food and clothes in it, so he took it and left the place quickly. At night, James arrived at the hotel where he was supposed to meet Mike, and when he entered the room, he made sure it was empty and found new clothes and an American passport in his name. He began to treat his injury and waited for Mike's call to no avail. When the time for the mission was over, he left the hotel and went to the metro station, where he bought a new phone and called Brasty. He asked him where Mike was and told him that Mike had escaped from Germany. James asked Rusty to locate Mike, exactly to send a team to pick him up and take him to the airport. And they found out they were in trouble, and soon they would find out. James told Rusty the name of the metro station and asked him to go to the bridge near the station in a quarter of an hour. James arrived at the bridge and called Prasty, who told him the specifications of a particular car to go and ride. James noticed that there were motorcycles around the place and concluded that this was a trap from Rusty to get rid of it. He talked to Rusty and asked him if he had killed Mike. Rusty understood that James revealed his plan. Suddenly, the motorcycles went quickly towards James, and two got out of the car, chased him and shot him. James ran away from them and jumped into the river quickly, continuing until he reached the other side. James got rid of one of the pursuers and took his weapon, then shot the rest until he reached the sewer door under the bridge. He opened the door and quickly entered, and two people were looking for him. James attacked one and was seriously injured, and the other hit him hard until he killed him. Then he returned to the injured person who was about to die, examined him and found his passport, and discovered that he was a former officer in the army. That person told him that Rusty tricked him and convinced him that they were carrying out a government mission. James revealed that he was also an army officer, and the man apologized to him because they were going to flee the country. But the instructions changed at the last minute. James asked the man to take his phone and told him the number of a specific person to help him. Then James left him and left the place. But he felt very tired and a sharp pain in his knee, so he sat down at the metro station to rest a little. Remember the talk of Dr. Salim, who told him that he was carrying a copy of his research in a secret safe? He quickly went to Salim's house, and he entered easily, because he knew the door symbol from his previous observation of Salim. When he saw Sylvie, Salim's wife, Salim, threatened her that he would kill her if she did not obey him. And James asked her about the computer carrying a copy of his research, and she told him that it was kept in a deposit box at the bank. Sylvie and her son took the car, and they quickly headed to the bank. A selfie went down and entered the bank, then returned with a tablet and handed it to James, but to open it, she had to answer selfie questions about her and her family. So she responded to questions, and James opened the tablet and found the files he was looking for. Then he got out of the car and walked, and at night he called the number he got from the person who was chasing him. And after a short time, a person named Eddie came to take James. But when James got in the car, Eddie injected him with a drug and lost consciousness. James woke up to find himself tied in a medical bed, his body connected to medical devices. He tried to untie but couldn't. So Eddie told him not to try because he wouldn't work. To reassure him, he saw his bag and assured him that everything in it was fine. Then he was freed from the restraints and told him that he had treated his knee before the injury worsened. James tried to stand up but couldn't. So Eddie explained to him that his body needed to rest and helped him get back to bed. When James regained his health, he opened the tablet and found a message from Dr. Salim to his family, telling them that the virus he invented will help a lot in combating diseases spread in the world, but it will be against the interests of pharmaceutical companies that seek to own the virus and sell it at exorbitant prices. Here, James discovers that Salim was not working with criminal organizations, but trying to help and save people. James was very touched and his tears flow, and he regretted killing Salim. After that, he sat down to have dinner with Eddie, and during their conversation, Eddie was shot in the head and he died immediately. Here, James knew that Rusty had sent an assassination squad to get rid of him. James lit a candle, opened the entire pot gas pipe, and let the gas come out of it on the ground. Then he took his need and quickly went out to the last floor, jumped out of the window on the tree next to the house, and then ran away quickly. At that time, Rusty's men entered the house, and when they opened the door, the whole house exploded and they all died. After the explosion, James takes Eddie's car and leaves the place quickly. The next day, he books a ticket to America, then returns to the hotel to prepare himself for travel. Hours later, he heads to the airport and travels to America. As soon as he arrives, he goes to Mike's house to inform his wife that her husband is dead, but he is shocked when he sees him inside the house playing with his son. Then James realizes that Mike tricked him and left him alone in Germany. The next day, Mike gets out in his car and James starts chasing him on a motorcycle. James sees Mike entering a public garage, following him and entering the garage behind him. He watches him until he parks his car on the last floor. Suddenly, Mike attacks him without knowing his identity. Mike is surprised when James takes off the helmet and tells him that Rusty tricked him and told him he was dead. James gets angry and asks him why he lied to him about the mission. Mike replies that the mission was just stealing data, and he didn't know that things would evolve to this extent. At that moment, James takes the gun from Mike and pushes him towards the car. The two discover that the mission was not just stealing data, but stealing a cure for a dangerous virus. Rusty was planning to spread the virus among people at the same time that the treatment of the virus is stolen from Dr. Salim to make huge profits from the suffering of patients. James warns Mike that Rusty will kill him and his family if he discovers his presence in America and advises him to run away quickly. But Mike refuses to escape and asks James to help him kill Rusty to protect themselves. James agrees. At night, Mike drives towards Rusty's house, and James hides in the trunk of the car. When they arrive, Mike gets out of the car and starts shooting Rusty's men, manages to kill 2 of them and finish the 3rd before he escapes. At that moment, James gets out of the car and sneaks behind the house to reach Rusty, who is confused with Mike in a shootout. In a shootout, Mike is shot in the stomach, but he also shoots in the chest and falls to the ground. James enters Rusty, finds him on the ground because of his injury, and without hesitation, he shoots him in the head and ends his life. After that, James goes to Mike, and they get in the car quickly. On the way, they are reassured that Mike will live and return to his family, but he asks James to inform his wife and son that he loved them very much, and then dies. In the morning, James sets fire to the car and burns Mike's body. After that, James returns home, where he sees his wife and son walking down the street, and he seems happy that he has returned to them again.